engines humming steadily, shields shimmering faintly as if reflecting the pride and power of their empire. Commanders and officers aboard the capital ships were in high spirits, certain that this sector was under their complete control. Nothing unusual had ever been detected here, and the fleet's presence was more of a formality than a necessity. Captain Thalor, a seasoned officer of the Imperial Navy, leaned over the control panel in the bridge of the Vindicator, the flagship of the patrol squadron. His sharp eyes scanned the holographic displays, showing the positions of all nearby vessels in the star systems within 100 light-years. "Routine scan complete," he muttered. "Nothing to report, just as expected." Around him, the crew went about their duties with quiet efficiency. There was a confidence in the air, a sense that the Empire's dominance over this region was absolute and unquestionable. But space, vast and mysterious, rarely followed expectations. As the patrol fleet continued its route, a sudden blip appeared on the scanners, a small but highly unusual signal moving faster than any known Imperial craft. Lieutenant Sora, monitoring the long-range sensors, frowned. "Captain, I'm detecting an unknown vessel entering our sector. It's human-made." The words made Captain Thaler pause. Humans, the species native to a distant, supposedly primitive world, were known throughout the galaxy for their unpredictability, but they were not considered a serious threat. Most Imperial officers dismissed them as a minor nuisance, hardly advanced enough to challenge the Empire's fleets. "Human," he repeated, a trace of disbelief in his voice. "Send a closer scan. Identify the vessel's size, weaponry, and origin." The crew obeyed immediately. Holographic screens flickered to life, showing a single, solitary warship moving with calm precision through the sector. Unlike Imperial designs which favored overwhelming firepower and massive, imposing hulls, this human ship was sleek and efficient. Its hull reflected the faint starlight as though polished to perfection, and its form hinted at speed and maneuverability rather than brute strength. Sensors showed energy readings far beyond what the Empire had seen from human colonies, and yet the ship emitted no aggressive signals. It was simply there, as if it belonged to this sector of space, and yet it clearly did not. Captain Thalor leaned closer to the display, a growing unease settling in his chest. How did a human warship get this far into Imperial space without detection? He muttered. Around him, murmurs spread among the officers. Many exchanged looks of disbelief, unsure whether this was an error in the scanners or the first sign of an unknown human breakthrough. The idea that a single human vessel could navigate Imperial-controlled space without being detected until now seemed impossible. The ship continued its steady course, ignoring the fleet entirely. No evasive maneuvers, no attempts at communication, nothing. It moved with calm authority, as if it had a purpose that it would complete regardless of the Imperial presence. Captain Thalor knew that the Empire had the most advanced surveillance systems in known space. Every fleet movement, every sensor sweep, every patrol was designed to catch intruders before they even entered a sector. And yet here was a human vessel appearing out of nowhere, challenging the assumption that humans were weak, simple, and manageable. "Captain," Lieutenant Sora spoke again, her voice quieter this time, almost hesitant. "I'm recalculating its trajectory. It doesn't match any known human or Imperial flight patterns. It's moving like it knows this sector better than we do." The statement caused a ripple of tension across the bridge. Officers glanced at one another nervously, trying to mask the growing sense of alarm. In every academy lesson, in every war manual, the human species was treated as a minor threat, one that could be contained or avoided. But this ship defied those lessons. It was a single vessel, yet it radiated confidence, precision, and a kind of quiet menace that made even experienced officers uneasy. The Imperial Fleet Commander, Admiral Corval, appeared on the bridge via holographic projection, his expression stern. "Report, Captain Thalor," he demanded, his deep voice echoing across the bridge. "Admiral," Thalor began carefully, "we have detected an unknown human warship in this sector. Its trajectory is precise, its systems advanced, and it has not responded to hails. It does not match any known human designs." A flicker of surprise crossed the Admiral's face before he masked it with composure. "Humans ain't in this sector?" "Impossible." "Are you certain of your readings?" "Yes, sir. All scans confirm it. I've double-checked sensor data. This vessel is moving independently, deliberately, and it seems aware of our positions." Admiral Corval's expression hardened. The Empire had long dismissed humans as a minor nuisance and unpredictable species, but hardly a threat. Now that assumption was being tested. "Keep your fleet ready. Do not engage unless provoked," he ordered, though the command did little to hide the tension in his voice. "I want constant updates. Do not underestimate this human vessel." The rest of the patrol fleet moved into formation, a show of strength meant to intimidate any potential intruder. But as the fleet adjusted its course, the human ship continued on its path undisturbed, moving with a calm, almost deliberate grace. Captain Thaler studied the ship's movements, trying to predict its next step. Every calculation suggested it should have responded by now, either to retreat, to evade, or to signal. But it did none of these. It was as if the human crew understood the very mind of the Imperial fleet, anticipating movements before they happened. On board the human warship, Captain Elena Riker observed the approaching Imperial vessels through the viewport. Her crew worked in quiet harmony, each member focused on their role with almost mechanical precision. Unlike the Empire's fleets, where intimidation and overwhelming force were the primary tools, her approach relied on precision, speed, and intelligence. She didn't intend to provoke a battle, but she knew the importance of establishing presence. The humans may be underestimated, but she would ensure that no one would make that mistake again. Back on the Vindicator, Captain Thaler's unease grew. His officers exchanged nervous glances, whispering speculations about the ship's capabilities. Could humans have advanced technology beyond the Empire's understanding? Was this vessel alone, or was it scouting for something larger? Each question led to more uncertainty, and uncertainty in the Imperial Navy was dangerous. Pride and overconfidence had been the Empire's hallmark for centuries, and now, that confidence was being challenged by a single human ship. As the hours passed, the unknown vessel drew closer. The scanners revealed more details: an energy core far more efficient than anything in Imperial records, weapon systems that were smaller yet more precise, and shields that seemed to adapt instantaneously to sensor pulses. Captain Thaler realized that this was no ordinary human ship. The legends of human ingenuity were true, but the reality far exceeded those tales. By the time the human ship reached the outer edge of the sector, it had already become more than just a mysterious intruder. It was a symbol, a warning that humans were no longer to be dismissed. Every Imperial officer who saw it felt a mixture of awe and fear. Here was a species thought weak, appearing suddenly with a power and confidence that challenged everything the Empire believed about itself. Captain Thaler stood silently, watching the human warship glide past the fleet. Its presence was unnerving yet fascinating. For centuries, the Galactic Empire had dominated, confident in its strength and order. But now that certainty was shaken. Somewhere out there in the dark, the humans were moving with a purpose unknown, a skill unmatched, and an unpredictability that left even the Empire's finest minds questioning their own assumptions. And in that quiet tension, one truth became clear: the galaxy was changing, and the humans were no longer just another species to watch. They were a force to be reckoned with. The human warship moved through the sector with calm, deliberate precision. It did not accelerate recklessly, nor did it weave through space in a frantic attempt to evade detection. Instead, it glided with a sense of purpose that unsettled the Imperial fleet. The Vindicator and its escorts maintained formation, sensors trained on the strange vessel, trying to anticipate its next move. Every reading suggested that the humans were not only capable of handling themselves, but were far more experienced in navigating this part of space than anyone aboard the Imperial ships. Captain Thaler watched intently as the human ship adjusted its trajectory slightly, seemingly to avoid the gas giant at the edge of the sector. Even that maneuver, simple as it appeared, was calculated with an efficiency that made him uneasy. It did not jerk or swerve like an untested vessel. It moved like a predator surveying its territory, assessing threats without revealing its own intentions. "It's watching us as much as we're watching it," Thaler muttered under his breath, almost to himself. The officers on the bridge froze for a moment, realizing the truth in his observation. The human vessel did not respond to hails. The Imperial fleet had tried everything: standard communication frequencies, encrypted channels, even the older protocols used in the border systems where lawless humans were rumored to hide. The crew of the human ship made no effort to communicate. They remained silent, their movements precise, almost elegant, as if ignoring the Empire was the ultimate form of strategy. Lieutenant Sora's fingers flew over her console as she attempted to analyze the ship's electronic signatures. "Captain, there's no standard communication protocol in use," she said. "It's almost as if they're deliberately isolating themselves from us. But their systems are fully operational. They know we're here." Captain Thaylor exhaled slowly, a knot forming in his stomach. The Empire had spent centuries assuming humans were primitive, slow to learn, and predictable. Yet here was a human warship that not only defied those assumptions, but seemed to anticipate every standard Imperial action. Even the movements of the fleet felt sluggish compared to the calm efficiency of this single vessel. It was as if the humans were not merely observing, they were analyzing, calculating, and preparing for every possible response before the Empire could act. Admiral Corval's hologram flickered to life on the bridge once again, his expression sharper than before. "Report," he demanded, his deep voice carrying an edge of authority. "Sir," Thaylor began cautiously, "the human ship is maintaining course. It has not responded to hails. Sensors indicate advanced propulsion systems and adaptive shield technology. Its movements suggest tactical awareness, even anticipation of our formation adjustments. I believe they are observing us as much as we are observing them." The Admiral's eyes narrowed. "They are a single vessel?" "Yes, sir," Thaylor confirmed. "No fleet accompaniment has been detected. Yet their capabilities far exceed what a single human ship should be able to achieve. Their coordination and precision are remarkable." For a long moment, the holographic image of the Admiral hovered silently, the weight of the revelation sinking in. The Empire had never faced a human threat of this magnitude. Even in the colonies where humans had developed advanced technologies, Imperial analysts had assumed humans were unpredictable, but not dangerous on a large scale. Here, in the dark reaches of the galaxy, one human warship had challenged that assumption entirely. Meanwhile, on the human vessel, Captain Elena Riker stood at the observation deck, her gaze steady as she watched the Imperial fleet. The humans aboard her ship moved with disciplined efficiency. No one panicked, no one hesitated. Each action was precise, each calculation deliberate. They did not intend to provoke the Empire, but they were fully prepared to defend themselves if necessary. In every movement, every adjustment to the ship's trajectory, they demonstrated not arrogance but competence and confidence. The first real test came when one of the Empire's destroyers moved closer, attempting to establish a visual identification. Its weapon systems powered up, a clear signal of intimidation. The crew expected the humans to flee or respond aggressively, but the human ship remained on course. Sensors revealed subtle adjustments, small changes in shield alignment, energy redistribution across propulsion systems, and calculated movements that kept the destroyer from gaining a tactical advantage. It was a silent lesson in strategy. One human ship had neutralized the Empire's intimidation attempt without firing a single shot. Captain Thaylor could hardly believe what he was witnessing. They're not reacting the way any intelligent species would," he said, almost incredulously. "They're not aggressive, but they're controlling the engagement entirely." Lieutenant Sora nodded slowly. "It's as if they're teaching us a lesson in patience and strategy. Every action we take is anticipated, yet they do not strike. Their purpose is not destruction. At least not yet." The Imperial fleet's internal communication channels buzzed with speculation. Officers whispered theories about the ship's capabilities, trying to rationalize what they saw. Some suggested experimental human technology. Others predicted secret allies hidden just beyond sensor range. Every theory had one common factor. The humans had upended expectations. The arrogance and overconfidence that had characterized the Empire for centuries were crumbling in the face of a single, silent ship. As the hours stretched on, the human vessel executed a series of maneuvers that displayed both ingenuity and audacity. It approached a cluster of asteroid fields, weaving effortlessly through the debris without slowing down. The Empire's sensors tracked each movement, noting the human ship's ability to adjust shields and engines almost instantaneously. Captain Thaylor and his officers exchanged uneasy glances. None had ever encountered technology that allowed such fluid and adaptive navigation. "It's incredible," Sora whispered. "They're calculating trajectories in real time. predicting the movement of every piece of debris before it even enters their path. No Imperial ship can match this. Captain Thaler clenched his fists. Pride and instinct warned him not to admit it, but the truth was undeniable. The humans were extraordinary. One vessel had already rendered the Empire's fleet's assumptions obsolete, and yet they had not fired a shot, had not provoked a confrontation. Their presence alone was enough to challenge the Empire's authority in this sector. Admiral Corval returned to the hologram, this time with a more measured tone. "Keep a close eye on them. Document everything. They may be a threat we cannot ignore." Thaler nodded. "Yes, sir. Sensors are tracking all energy outputs, shield adjustments, propulsion efficiency, and communications attempts. We will not lose sight of them." Despite the Empire's preparations, the human ship continued its calm course, as if moving along a predetermined path only it understood. The crew aboard the Vindicator struggled to interpret its intentions. Every decision seemed deliberate, every movement calculated. The humans were not chaotic, but they were unpredictable in ways that defied Imperial logic. It was becoming clear that the humans were not only technologically advanced, but also tactically brilliant. Hours later, the first real interaction occurred, not through weapons or communication, but through subtle maneuvers. The human ship approached a gravity well created by a nearby dwarf star, adjusting its trajectory in a way that demonstrated an intuitive understanding of celestial mechanics, far beyond what the Empire expected. Sensors could barely track the adjustments, but the result was undeniable. The humans had moved through the dangerous field without incident, while the Imperial ships had to slow down and recalibrate to avoid collision. Captain Thaler realized the truth in that moment. The humans were not merely advanced. They were adaptable, capable of reading the environment and responding instantly in ways no Imperial officer had been trained to anticipate. They had achieved something that many of the Empire's fleets would struggle to accomplish even with months of planning. And yet, throughout all of this, the humans showed restraint. They could have easily forced the Empire's ships to scatter or suffer damage. Instead, they moved with calm, almost deliberate patience, signaling that they were not seeking conflict but respect. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer weak, no longer a minor species in the galaxy. They were a force that demanded attention, a presence that could not be ignored. As the sun of the distant star system bathed the sector in its pale light, the Imperial fleet held formation, watching the human warship glide past with silent authority. Every officer aboard felt it, the tension, the awe, and the subtle fear of the unknown. One human ship had demonstrated what centuries of Imperial doctrine had assumed impossible. The balance of confidence had shifted. The humans were no longer a curiosity. They were a challenge, and the Empire was only beginning to understand the magnitude of that reality. Captain Thaler remained at his station, eyes locked on the human vessel. Every instinct, every lesson learned over decades told him that this encounter would be remembered, studied, and discussed for years to come. One ship, one species had managed to unsettle the mighty Galactic Empire. The implications were clear. The humans were unpredictable, intelligent, and far more capable than anyone had expected. And somewhere within the crew of the human warship, Captain Elena Riker watched the Imperial fleet with the same calm certainty. She knew the eyes of the Empire were upon them, trying to decipher intentions, trying to assert control. But humans had survived, adapted, and thrived against greater powers. The Empire would learn, slowly and surely, that humans did not rely solely on brute force. They relied on ingenuity, courage, and the ability to act when least expected. In the quiet tension of space, the two forces faced one another, silent yet fully aware. The humans had made their presence known, not through aggression but through skill and precision. The Empire had no choice but to acknowledge it. The galaxy was about to change, and the humans were at the center of that change. The calm tension in the sector could not last forever. Even the most disciplined Imperial officers were beginning to feel a growing unease. For hours, the human warship had moved through the fleet's territory, observing, analyzing, and demonstrating an almost uncanny mastery of space navigation and tactical foresight. Yet it remained silent, showing no sign of aggression. The longer it lingered, the more it unsettled the Empire's pride. Captain Thaler stood at the bridge of the Vindicator, eyes glued to the human ship's movements. Every officer in the room was alert, some even nervous. The Empire had been prepared to assert control over its sector at a moment's notice, but the human vessel had rendered standard tactics ineffective. Every calculated maneuver by the Imperial fleet was anticipated and countered in ways too subtle to recognize immediately, yet unmistakable once observed. It was as though the human ship had rewritten the rules of engagement without ever firing a weapon. The first spark of real confrontation came when one of the Empire's destroyers, the Dominion, attempted to assert dominance. It accelerated toward the human vessel, weapon systems charging with an audible hum across the communication channels. Captain Valen, commanding the Dominion, was confident that a display of force would intimidate the humans, perhaps even compel them to reveal their purpose or retreat. But as the destroyer drew closer, the humans did not flinch. They continued their course calmly, as if acknowledging the Dominion's approach without perceiving it as a threat. "Steady, everyone," Thalor ordered, his voice firm despite the tension. "Observe. Do not engage until instructed. We need full data on their capabilities." Sensors immediately began recording the human ship's responses. The vessel's shields adjusted dynamically, shifting energy from one section to another in milliseconds. The weapon systems of the Dominion were unable to lock onto a single target, as the human ship twisted slightly, redistributing its mass and momentum with precision. It was subtle, almost invisible to casual observation, but the results were clear. The destroyer systems were struggling to maintain a lock. Lieutenant Sora's voice broke through the silence.
"Captain, they're controlling the engagement."
"Every movement we make is anticipated. They're not just defending, they're teaching us how ineffective our standard tactics are." Captain Thalor exhaled sharply. He had trained for scenarios involving hostile or rogue ships, but he had never encountered an enemy that manipulated the battlefield so completely without direct aggression. The humans were proving to be more than capable strategists. They were demonstrating a level of tactical brilliance that challenged the very foundation of Imperial doctrine. On board the human warship, Captain Elena Riker observed the Dominion's approach with calm calculation. Her crew executed orders without hesitation, adjusting shields, energy distribution, and propulsion to maintain optimal positioning. No shot was fired. No threat was made. The human ship simply adapted, ensuring that the destroyer could not exploit any perceived weakness. To the Imperial crew, it appeared almost as if the human vessel were dancing in space, avoiding aggression while demonstrating complete mastery of the engagement. The Dominion fired a warning shot, a beam of energy that cut across the void. The humans responded immediately, but not with retaliation. Instead, the shields absorbed the energy with perfect efficiency, dispersing it harmlessly across the ship's hull. The Imperial officers watched in disbelief. This single ship had withstood a direct energy discharge from one of their own destroyers, and showed no signs of damage or vulnerability. Captain Thalor clenched his fists. "They're invulnerable to our standard attacks," he muttered. "Every strike we attempt is neutralized before it can even land. How is this possible?" Sora shook her head. "They've advanced energy shielding, rapid adaptive algorithms, and incredible propulsion control. They're not just surviving. They're teaching us a lesson in engagement." The Dominion's captain realized he could not match the humans in direct confrontation. The destroyer's attacks became more desperate, energy beams firing in rapid succession. Yet the human ship absorbed each blow with minimal effort, never slowing its course or deviating from its path. The Imperial fleet began to notice a disturbing pattern. The humans were deliberately avoiding destruction. Every maneuver and shield adjustment indicated an understanding of balance, restraint, and control. They could have obliterated the destroyer instantly, yet they did not. Admiral Korval's hologram appeared again on the bridge of the Vindicator, his expression tense. "Report," he demanded. "Why has engagement not been successful?" Captain Thalor hesitated. "Admiral, the humans are not reacting with aggression. They are adapting, anticipating, and neutralizing every attack. Their shields redistribute energy faster than our systems can target them. They are in complete control without even firing a shot. The destroyer has taken no damage, yet cannot land an effective strike. I have never seen anything like this in Imperial records." The Admiral's eyes narrowed. "Prepare all ships for full engagement. If they resist, we will escalate force." But escalation proved difficult. The human ship's movements were unpredictable yet perfectly logical. It employed sudden micro-adjustments using gravitational pulls from nearby celestial objects, carefully maneuvering around asteroid fields, and exploiting sensor blind spots with precision. Even when multiple Imperial ships coordinated attacks, the human vessel consistently repositioned itself to maintain an optimal advantage. The Empire's officers exchanged worried glances. The humans had demonstrated that raw firepower alone was insufficient. They had redefined the rules of combat within minutes of entering the sector. The sheer confidence and skill of one ship threatened to unravel the Empire's assumptions about control and dominance. As the Dominion backed off, the humans executed a maneuver that shocked everyone aboard the Imperial fleet. Using a combination of precise propulsion bursts and gravitational assists, the human ship approached a nearby moon, performing a flyby so close that Imperial sensors struggled to keep track. From their perspective, the ship had threaded an impossible path, avoiding debris and gravity wells while maintaining shields and propulsion efficiency. The maneuver was daring, elegant, and unmistakably intentional. Captain Thalor rubbed his temples, trying to process the information. They're not just surviving, they're demonstrating our failures, and that was exactly what the humans intended. Captain Riker had chosen to make their first confrontation one of demonstration, not destruction. The humans understood that the Empire's arrogance was as dangerous as its weaponry. By controlling the engagement without aggression, they showed that humans were a species capable of strategy, foresight, and restraint, qualities often underestimated in the galaxy. The Imperial fleet attempted one more coordinated strike, concentrating fire from 3 destroyers simultaneously. For the first time, the humans executed a subtle counter-strategy. They distributed energy across shields and engines in near-perfect harmony, causing the Imperial beams to misalign and miss their intended impact zones. The result was a stunning visual display of control. The 3 beams hit nothing while the human ship maintained flawless formation. The officers aboard the Imperial ships could only watch wide-eyed, as their most carefully coordinated attack failed completely. "Impossible," whispered Sora. They calculated the angles, shield absorption, and trajectory adjustments in real time, and they avoided damage entirely. One ship. One human ship. Captain Thalor knew that this encounter would be remembered for centuries. The human vessel had demonstrated not only technical superiority in some aspects, but, more importantly, mastery of strategy and calm under pressure. The Empire had trained its fleets to dominate, relying on numerical superiority and firepower. The humans had just disproven the assumption that such tactics would always succeed. Admiral Corville's hologram flickered again, tension clear in his posture. "Cease current attack pattern. Observe and report every movement. Document all capabilities. This species cannot be underestimated." The Imperial officers followed orders, but the sense of awe and unease was palpable. Across the fleet, whispered conversations speculated on the humans' origin, their potential allies, and the implications of their presence. Every calculation, every sensor reading suggested that humanity had not only adapted, but excelled in a way the Empire had not anticipated. As the human ship moved gracefully through the sector, Captain Riker reflected on the encounter. The humans had no desire for unnecessary destruction, but they would not be underestimated. Every maneuver was a statement. Humans were intelligent, resourceful, and capable of facing far greater powers than themselves. The Empire would remember this day, whether they admitted it or not, and the galaxy would soon learn that humans were no longer a species to dismiss. By the end of the engagement, the Imperial fleet was left in a state of calculated respect mixed with quiet fear. The humans had not fired a destructive shot, yet they had completely controlled the encounter. The Empire had learned, painfully, that one ship could teach lessons that entire fleets could not. Captain Thalor remained on the bridge, staring at the human vessel as it continued its calm patrol. "This changes everything," he muttered. "We assumed superiority, but we were wrong. We must prepare differently. We must understand them." The human ship glided silently into the dark expanse of the sector, leaving the Imperial fleet to recover from the shock of what had just occurred. One lesson was clear. Humans were not merely survivors. They were masters of strategy, calculation, and precision, and the galaxy, vast and unpredictable, would never look the same again. The human warship had left its mark on the Imperial fleet. though it remained physically untouched. Even without firing a shot, it had reshaped the perception of the Empire. Reports and recordings of the encounter were transmitted to Central Command, and the consequences rippled across sectors like a shockwave. Imperial officers, scholars, strategists, and politicians all struggled to comprehend what had just occurred. A single human vessel had demonstrated tactical genius, technological adaptability, and calm, measured restraint, all in the heart of Imperial-controlled space. Admiral Corville convened an emergency council within the high command chambers on the capital world of Atraxis. Holographic displays of the sector and the human ship's maneuvers flickered above the table, drawing intense attention from the assembled leaders. Generals and admirals leaned forward, some skeptical, some stunned, as Captain Thaler gave a detailed account of the engagement. Every calculation, every movement, every subtle adjustment made by the humans was replayed in painstaking detail. "This cannot be ignored," Admiral Corville said firmly, his tone betraying a tension rarely seen in the high command. "We have underestimated humanity for too long. A single ship has demonstrated capabilities we thought impossible. They are precise, intelligent, and entirely unpredictable. We cannot rely on conventional assumptions. We must treat them as a strategic factor." The room was filled with murmurs. Analysts debated the possible origins of the ship. Some suggested experimental human technology developed in secret, perhaps with aid from unknown allies or advanced research colonies. Others feared it represented a larger hidden fleet waiting to strike. Every theory carried one conclusion: the humans were no longer a species to be dismissed or underestimated. On distant Imperial outposts, the news arrived like a storm. Communication networks broadcasted the engagement's details to fleets, patrol units, and planetary defenses. Officers who had long scoffed at humans now studied data, recalculated strategies, and questioned the reliability of Imperial supremacy. Across the Empire, a quiet fear settled in. Humans were unpredictable, their technology advanced, and their strategic thinking remarkable. One ship had challenged centuries of Imperial pride, and the ramifications were just beginning to unfold. Captain Thaler returned to the Vindicator, where the crew was still buzzing with discussions about the encounter. They were proud of what they had witnessed, but uneasy. None of them had ever faced an adversary like this. The humans had avoided confrontation, yet their control over the engagement had been total. Every officer on the bridge understood that the Empire's traditional measures, firepower, numerical superiority, intimidation, were no longer guaranteed to secure dominance. On board the human ship, Captain Elena Riker reviewed the Imperial fleet's movements through the data feeds they had collected. Every observation was methodical, catalogued for future reference. She understood the Empire's perspective. Her species had disrupted centuries of arrogance and assumed superiority. Humans had acted decisively but without aggression. That very restraint would make the Empire wary, cautious, and perhaps overly reactive. She knew that her actions had sent a message. Humans were intelligent, adaptable, and not to be underestimated. Across the Empire, political leaders reacted with alarm. Propaganda had long portrayed humans as weak, primitive, and easily controlled. Entire sectors had relied on these assumptions to justify military budgets, territorial expansion, and colonization. Now those assumptions were crumbling. Analysts warned that human ingenuity could not be predicted by conventional modeling. The realization was both humbling and terrifying. The humans were no longer a species that could be ignored. They were a force that demanded respect, planning, and preparation. In strategic planning rooms, Imperial officers debated responses. Should they attempt a show of overwhelming force, risking escalation with an unpredictable adversary? Should they observe and attempt diplomacy, despite lacking prior contact? Could they even understand human motives given the species' unpredictability? Each answer seemed insufficient. The humans had introduced variables the Empire had never accounted for. Intelligence, creativity, and restraint combined with advanced technology. These were factors the Empire's calculations could not fully model. On Atraxis, intelligence divisions began analyzing all known human colonies, communications patterns, and technological developments. Sensors were recalibrated to detect previously unnoticed signals, energy fluctuations, or propulsion signatures. Every human outpost was examined, every colony scrutinized. It was as though the Empire had suddenly realized that their long-held assumptions about the galaxy were incomplete. Humanity, once dismissed, now represented a new paradigm of threat and potential if harnessed. Meanwhile, ordinary Imperial officers struggled to come to terms with the event. In fleet barracks, conversations shifted from routine logistics to speculation and awe. Soldiers who had trained under the assumption that humans were weak and uncoordinated now questioned every lesson. Humans were no longer a curiosity. They were a species capable of intelligence, adaptability, and courage that rivaled the Empire's finest. It was both inspiring and unsettling. The ripple effects of the encounter also reached the civilian population in Imperial worlds. Merchants, scholars, and colonists discussed the story in hushed tones. Many had grown up hearing tales of human weakness, yet now one ship had demonstrated otherwise. Rumors spread quickly. Humans were capable of incredible feats more advanced than previously thought, and possibly harboring hidden allies. The story of the human warship began to take on a mythic quality. It was not just a tale of technology, but a narrative of intellect, courage, and unpredictability. Back in the High Command, the discussion turned to action. Strategic councils debated how to prepare for the humans' next appearance. Should fleets be reinforced? Sensor grids expanded or new protocols developed to counter human ingenuity. Every plan faced the same problem. The humans had proven their unpredictability. Traditional tactics might fail entirely, and no model could fully anticipate human response. Officers realized that the humans had achieved something few adversaries ever could. They had forced the Empire to question its own supremacy. Captain Thaler, now well aware of the humans' capabilities, reflected on the encounter. The warship had avoided unnecessary conflict, yet its impact on the Empire was undeniable. It was a lesson in control, strategy, and restraint, demonstrating that power was not merely measured by numbers or weapons, but by intelligence and adaptability. The humans had achieved victory without a single destructive strike, a concept foreign to many Imperial officers. On the human vessel, Captain Riker monitored the growing reaction across the Empire with a mixture of satisfaction and caution. She understood that the humans had sent a clear message. The galaxy had changed, and the Empire could no longer take their species lightly. But she also knew the danger of underestimating the Empire's capacity for retaliation. Every action would be watched, every maneuver analyzed. Humans had disrupted centuries of arrogance, but they had not declared war. They had simply reminded the galaxy that they were a force to be reckoned with. Across the Imperial sectors, fleets were reorganized, patrol patterns intensified, and defensive protocols revised. Analysts worked tirelessly to predict the humans' next move, though every attempt revealed more gaps than answers. The Empire's pride had been shaken, and the lessons learned in this encounter would influence strategy for years to come. Commanders were left with a humbling truth. Humans were unpredictable, intelligent, and capable of challenging even the mightiest forces in the galaxy. The impact was not only military but psychological. Officers who had once dismissed humans as primitive were forced to confront the species' ingenuity and courage. Even those accustomed to Imperial dominance felt the weight of uncertainty. A single ship had demonstrated that humans were not merely survivors. They were masters of adaptability, strategy, and self-control. As the human warship moved on, disappearing into the expanse of the galaxy, its presence remained etched in the minds of every officer, analyst, and political leader who had witnessed it. The Empire had been shaken, its assumptions challenged, and its pride humbled. Across the galaxy, a quiet but profound shift had begun. Humanity had proven that it could not be ignored, underestimated, or dismissed. The warship's appearance would be remembered as a turning point, a day when one species reminded the universe that intelligence, adaptability, and courage were as powerful as any fleet or weapon. Even long after the human vessel vanished from sensors, the shockwaves of its presence continued. The Empire began to rethink strategies, reassess colonies, and reconsider alliances. Intelligence divisions worked overtime to understand the humans' capabilities, their intentions, and their potential for influence. Politicians debated the implications for policy, while military leaders adjusted training, tactics, and fleet readiness. Every sector was affected. Every officer reminded that the galaxy was larger, more complex, and far more unpredictable than the Empire had assumed. Captain Thalor often found himself reflecting on the event. The human warship had acted with restraint, yet had utterly disrupted Imperial assumptions. It had shown that one ship could challenge the calculations, doctrines, and pride of an entire empire. For the first time, many officers realized that the humans were not just another species. They were a catalyst for change, a force that could reshape the galaxy in ways the Empire had never imagined. And as the galaxy continued its endless spin, the memory of the human warship remained, a silent, powerful reminder that the Empire was no longer unchallenged, and that the humans, with their intelligence, courage, and ingenuity, had become a new and undeniable presence on the galactic stage. The human warship had vanished from the Imperial sector, leaving behind no wreckage, no signals, and no indication of where it had gone next. Yet its presence lingered in every mind within the Galactic Empire. Even hours after it disappeared, officers and analysts were still replaying the encounter, studying every movement, every calculation, every subtle demonstration of control that the humans had executed. The memory of a single ship challenging Imperial dominance weighed heavily on fleets, councils, and planetary administrations alike. Captain Thalor remained aboard the Vindicator, staring at the empty expanse where the human vessel had passed. His officers worked tirelessly to record and analyze the engagement, but the weight of understanding its significance rested on him. They were extraordinary, he said quietly to himself. The Empire had assumed superiority, relied on numbers, firepower, and rigid doctrine. But the humans had shown that intelligence, adaptability, and calm precision could render even the most powerful fleet ineffective. Thalor realized that the galaxy had changed forever. On Atraxis, High Command continued to grapple with the implications. Analysts debated endlessly whether the human ship was a scout, a lone experimental vessel, or part of a larger hidden fleet. Military leaders revised protocols, updating sensor grids, recalibrating weapon systems, and rewriting engagement strategies. Diplomats and political figures warned against underestimating humanity, while some factions argued that the humans could be negotiated with or even coerced into alliances. Yet every discussion contained an undercurrent of fear. Humans were unpredictable, and unpredictability was dangerous to the Empire's carefully calculated dominance. In distant sectors, Imperial fleets adjusted patrol routes, strengthened defenses, and conducted drills simulating encounters with highly advanced human ships. Officers studied every detail of the engagement, attempting to find weaknesses, patterns, or strategies to counter humans in future conflicts. But despite all analysis, one truth became clear. Humans had demonstrated that skill, intelligence, and courage could surpass raw firepower. The Empire had been taught a lesson that no battle manual or strategy textbook could fully explain. Captain Elena Riker observed the aftermath from her ship, now far beyond Imperial sensors. She understood the Empire's reaction. Their shock and recalibration were precisely the effect she had intended. The humans had acted decisively but without unnecessary aggression. They had shown capability without destruction, precision without provocation. It was a demonstration meant to alter the Empire's perception, to ensure that humans would never again be dismissed as weak or unimportant. Her mission had succeeded. Back in Imperial command, the psychological impact of the encounter became apparent. Officers who had once treated humans as a minor curiosity now questioned their own training, assumptions, and judgment. Fleet commanders realized that engagement with humans could no longer rely on routine patterns, intimidation, or numerical superiority. Analysts noted that humans were capable of independent strategic thought, rapid adaptation, and creative problem-solving, qualities that made them formidable opponents in any scenario. For the common soldiers and officers, the story of the human ship became something more than a tactical lesson. It became a legend. Across Imperial barracks, fleets, and outposts, whispers circulated. One human ship had faced the Empire and emerged unscathed, demonstrating skills and intelligence far beyond expectations. It was a story that combined awe, fear, and respect. The humans had become a symbol of unpredictability, a reminder that dominance in the galaxy was never guaranteed. Political leaders on Atraxis debated the broader implications. Some saw humanity as a potential ally, others as a threat that must be contained. Regardless of opinion, the reality was undeniable. Humans had changed the Empire's approach to strategy, diplomacy, and defense. New councils were formed to study human colonies, technological capabilities, and potential tactics. Intelligence divisions worked around the clock, cataloging everything known about humanity. The single warship had become the catalyst for a comprehensive re-evaluation of the Empire's assumptions about the galaxy. Even within Imperial society, the encounter sparked discussion. Citizens who had grown up with propaganda depicting humans as primitive and weak began to question those narratives. Merchants, scholars, and ordinary colonists debated the stories of the human ship's maneuvers, the precision, the intelligence, and the restraint. Humanity was no longer an abstraction. It had become a species worthy of attention and respect. The myth of human inferiority was shattered, replaced by a cautious acknowledgement of their capabilities. Captain Thalor reflected on the encounter with a mixture of awe and concern. The humans had shown that one vessel, one crew, and one mind could outmaneuver entire fleets. The Empire had learned that raw strength alone could not guarantee control. The humans' combination of intelligence, adaptability, and courage had redefined what it meant to be a threat. In every officer's mind, a lesson lingered. Underestimate humans at your own peril. The impact of the human warship extended beyond military strategy. Philosophers, scholars, and thinkers within the Empire began to consider the broader implications of human ingenuity. Could one species, long underestimated, rise to challenge the established order of the galaxy? Could adaptability, intelligence, and courage balance against centuries of military might and political dominance? These questions rippled through academia, strategy councils, and cultural discourse. The humans had become more than a military factor. They were now a symbol of change, possibility, and challenge. As weeks passed, fleets that had once relied on predictable patterns and standard procedures began implementing new strategies. Sensor grids were expanded, engagement protocols revised, and training regimens updated to account for highly adaptable opponents. The Empire was in a period of transformation, forced to consider variables it had long ignored. Humanity had introduced unpredictability into a galaxy that had previously believed it could be fully controlled. One ship had accomplished what decades of planning could not. It had altered the Empire's strategic mindset. Captain Riker monitored developments from her vessel, noting the Empire's cautious response. She understood that the humans' appearance had created a ripple effect, forcing the Empire to question assumptions, reevaluate tactics, and reconsider the balance of power. The humans had demonstrated that the combination of intelligence, precision, and restraint could achieve far more than aggression alone. It was a lesson the Empire would not forget, one that would shape future encounters. Across the galaxy, the story of the human warship spread quickly. Pilots, fleet officers, and citizens alike spoke of the vessel's unmatched skill, tactical brilliance, and calm precision. It became a symbol of human ingenuity and courage, a story passed along in whispers, reports, and strategic briefings. The human ship had achieved a rare feat. It had become both legend and reality, a presence that demanded recognition without firing a single destructive shot. Even as the human vessel disappeared into the vastness of space, the Empire remained on edge. Patrols were doubled, fleets recalibrated, and every engagement protocol examined for weaknesses. Humans had proven that they were capable of operating independently, creatively, and intelligently in hostile space. The galaxy, previously assumed to be predictable and controllable, had suddenly become more complex. One species had introduced variables that could not be ignored. Captain Thalor stood at the observation deck of the Vindicator, staring into the darkness. The stars stretched endlessly, beautiful yet indifferent to the concerns of mortal civilizations. And somewhere among them the humans moved with calm purpose, their intentions unknown, their potential limitless. The Empire had faced many threats, but none had challenged their assumptions so completely. None had altered the perception of power and strategy so fundamentally. The lesson was clear and undeniable. Humans were not to be dismissed, underestimated, or ignored. They had proven their intelligence, adaptability, and courage. They had demonstrated that one ship, one crew, and one mind could hold entire fleets at bay without aggression. The Empire had been shaken, humbled, and reminded that dominance in the galaxy was never guaranteed. As the weeks turned into months, the human warship became a benchmark against which the Empire measured threats, strategies, and readiness. Every fleet learned from the encounter. Every officer studied the data. Every analyst considered the implications. Humanity had left its mark, not through destruction but through skill, strategy, and quiet power. The galaxy would never again view humans as insignificant. And somewhere, far beyond Imperial sensors, Captain Riker's ship glided silently through space. Her crew maintained vigilance, disciplined yet calm, aware that they had forever changed the balance of perception in the galaxy. Humans had entered a new chapter, one where intelligence, adaptability, and courage could reshape even the mightiest empires. The human warship's mission had been simple: to demonstrate capability, to challenge assumptions, and to ensure that the galaxy knew that humanity could no longer be underestimated. In the end, the Empire learned a profound lesson. Power was not measured by size, numbers, or firepower alone. It was also measured by intelligence, strategy, adaptability, and courage. And humans had demonstrated all of these qualities in a single, unforgettable encounter. The galaxy had shifted, forever altered by the quiet authority of one remarkable human warship.